Hi everybody, welcome to School of Scarlett. I am so happy to have you here today. Today we're going to be talking about the fear of spirituality. What is the fear of spirituality? Why do we have this fear? We're going to kind of be going through this journey. So come along with me on the journey of the fear of spirituality, what that looks like, the kind of pitfalls, the little blind spots that kind of come up, and why there is a strong fear of spirituality. Why is this even a thing? And why and how do we go through it? What's on the other side? So stick with me to the very end of this discussion to gain full clarity on the fear of spirituality. So I'll start by sharing some of my story. I grew up in a Christian household. So the household was already part of a religion. See, a religion and spirituality is different. Religion is a structure. It's an organization that has already been set up with certain beliefs, and they have already agreed upon these beliefs, these things. So they have already created an organization, a structure, the church around that. So you can safely join that church knowing that, hey, these are their beliefs, and if you believe that, then you're in the right place. So I was born into a home that already had this structure in it. So for me, getting to know that spiritual side of me, that spirituality, which is essentially your relationship with God, kind of went hand in hand, and it seemed like religion was that. But actually, they're very different things. You can be part of a religion. You can be born into a home that has a religious background, grow up in the church, everything like that, and not really experience these same things as those members or have the same beliefs as those members, based on your own direct experiences. For myself, it was kind of a painful situation because although I loved God, I had a huge heart for God, and I loved Jesus and all the stories and everything around it. A lot of what was being said did not resonate with me. If anything, it made me feel scared. It made me feel kind of like something bad was going to happen. It was a sense of anxiety around different things. It was a sense of anxiety around what would happen if I died, a sense of anxiety of what would happen to others that did not believe the same things. I had a grand scope of the world, so I wasn't just thinking of myself. The majority of time I was thinking about the world. My projection of who I was not exactly, it went all over the place. So let's just say my mind was filled with many thoughts that were very terrifying for a child. I can remember walking into a church back then when we lived in Mexico, and it was a Catholic church, and the Catholic church has the crucifix, and it had Jesus on the cross. And as I walked in, I had never really seen that. I had always known the story. Well, not always, but I'd known the story as a child. I was familiar with it. And as I walked in and I saw that image that was just horrifying, I was terrified. And I don't remember everything around it. My parents had to take me out, explain it to me, all of that. The truth is, that is a very horrifying image to show anyone, much less a child. So anyhow, that whole thing around religion was pretty terrifying for me, to be honest with you. I didn't really enjoy going to Sunday schools or being parts of these groups or any of these things, really. As an adult, when I came into spirituality through an actual authentic awakening around the time I was 18, I joined the church out of my own free will. And at that point, I was baptized. Now, at that point, I followed the rules and the kind of steps of the church. And so my whole thing with that was, I was in a religion, but I still had fear. I still had all of this fear. I was not free. So I want you to pay attention to the theme of freedom here, because what we're leading up to is true, actual freedom. And what these other things are parts of your journey, really, that awaken different aspects of freedom for you, but they're not the full freedom. So when I joined that, yes, I felt a sense of freedom within my being, okay, because something was being released, and it was becoming more in tune with the oneness of God inside of me, what was happening internally. Now, what was happening in my outside world was I was joining a church, I was following the rules, I was doing those things that I had to do to please God, to please the church, to show to others that I was in line with everything that was Christianity, was God, was the path. And so that was my way of being. And so the other thing that happened from there is that basically we begin to kind of build this identity of kind of people pleasing, but it's not people pleasing anymore. It's pleasing a God. So we're now in this whole state of really giving our life force energy to God. Now, eventually this does happen naturally. Even in an awakening path, it naturally happens that we surrender ourselves to God. And essentially we end up doing God's path regardless of what religion or what's happening with us. But that's generally, when it's happened naturally, it's a very natural next step that's completely ready for that. Whereas when you step into religion, a lot of times you're not in that space. And so you're being pressured to be good, to have this goodness, and to do and have all of these virtues and things that are godly. And see, when you're not awakened to all of that yet, it is very hard to follow that. Because we're not perfect. You see, humans aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. It doesn't matter what your consciousness is. You can be very conscious of what's happening. You can still make mistakes. You can still go into old programming. You can still do funny things. You're never going to be perfect because that's not the purpose of your expression. That's not what's wanting to happen here at all. So embrace those imperfections within you now, because if you don't now, you'll painfully have to go through the process of having to love those in some very painful ways a lot of the times. So anyhow, basically, this whole process of awakening is basically to free you. But there's so many little traps, so many little things that we can fall into. So just like I had that spiritual awakening around 18 and really felt a sense of freedom within me internally, I felt, because I didn't really know what the next step was, I felt the next step was to go into the church, because that was my programming, that was my upbringing, that was what I knew. So what did I do? I went into church and I began serving there. I began doing all of the things. And so this throws us now into a whole another realm of now pleasing this God, pleasing this church, pleasing these people, doing these things. And for some people that works really well. When you're expanding, you won't be in this stage too long because you just won't fit in. Just like I told you, me going into these things, it essentially didn't feel free because I was feeling so much freedom within that feeling the constrictions of the church was a bit confusing. And feeling the pressures to be so-called good when I was feeling the sense of freedom was very conflicting because I was wanting to be free, but now all of a sudden they were telling me it had to be this way. Where I can share with you a little bit of contrast with my non-dual awakening. With my non-dual awakening, I had an awakening and it was such a painful situation and everything about it that I really didn't have anything else to turn to. I literally was alone. And so being the character that I am, the introverted type character that I am, I didn't seek anything anymore. I had exhausted that from the past. I had already done those things in my past. So I wasn't going to do that now. I had already gone through counseling. I had already been through various religions. I had already done all of that. So the only thing left was myself. And when you have the only thing being yourself and this sense of freedom and no one else chattering or telling you anything of what you should be doing, or these are our virtues, or this is what you should do, then you do get the freedom to experience freedom. You don't have anything pressurizing you or bringing density to your experience. So for me, when I had that experience, I felt so free. And I basically took a year to do whatever I wanted. And in that year, I didn't join a church and stop doing all of these things that they said was bad. I actually did the opposite. I stayed in my little house. I went out on my porch. I tanned. I hanged out at my hot tub. I did things that I prevented myself or avoided myself from doing in the past because I thought they were wrong. And I allowed myself to enjoy those things and see if those things were something I wanted to do. So I did things I never would have thought to do. I even picked up smoking. I started drinking, just all kinds of things just to see what that was. And those things didn't last very long because they weren't freedom, they weren't that. But I wanted to experience that. I wanted to exhaust myself through this life, through this world, through experiences. Because to deny yourself something always leaves you, as you can tell, with something like a curiosity. It's a trap. So when you experience freedom, experience it fully. Allow yourself to go to those places that you've always wanted to explore, to those places that you've always wanted to be part of, and whatever it is, so that you have those experiences. And when you exhaust those, you're just going to see more beauty, more life, and you're going to awaken more to this. And you're going to see that those things that you thought were freedom, like those activities you thought were so freeing, is not where the freedom is. The freedom is you. The freedom is already within. So now it doesn't matter where you go, what activities you do, you're always free. You're always free at all moments. So in your awakening process, one of the things that we can do is we can go more into ourselves, or we can go more into things like religions or organizations and things like that. And you'll have to discern with your character what's right and what's not. For me, really looking at my journey, I feel it was a full and complete and whole journey. And for this character, it was something that she had to experience. And it was progression that it really had to happen that way. If it had happened a different way, it may have been different altogether. The progression of the way things went for me allowed me to really truly experience full freedom on my non-dual awakening, and to completely break through, basically, like you would say, the matrix and everything about it. So one of the things about spirituality is that people are fearful of what that looks like. For example, when I share things like, oh, I allowed myself the freedom to now all of a sudden start smoking, people that are against smoking, or just anyone, is going to all of a sudden get the little antennas come up, and they're going to become fearful, and they're going to say, oh my God, what in the world? Okay, so this means that when I experience freedom, I might just go nuts and go do the things that I was always so fearful to do, such as possibly things that could harm my body. And so the brain's going to jump in and kind of quiet the heart, say, no, don't do that. That's not going to be good for you. You're going to get stuck in addiction. You know how you are. You can't do this. You're not going to be able to handle this awakening. You're not going to be able to handle the emotions. All of these fearful thoughts will bombard you just with that little comment that I said. And there's going to be many other comments throughout this video that are going to trigger you into all kinds of things. And I want you to watch your triggers throughout these videos. If you're triggered, look into that. When we're triggered by something, that is a complete pointing to somewhere where we're out of alignment with who we truly are. So it's very clear these things are so helpful to us, but we don't recognize them that way until later on. But I'm telling you now, this is basically your superpower. Your body is constantly communicating with you. Your body is basically warning you. It's always telling you everything you need to know. But we thought it was against us. We thought we had to control it. We thought we had to shut it down when it was being anxious, when it was doing this. But it was actually sharing something with you. It was communicating a truth. So begin to listen to those as we even go throughout this video. So those are the things that come up with the fear of spirituality. What if I go to hell? That's a big one. So for the longest time, I had the fear of going to hell. Of course, I was very young. I'm talking about a child. And that was my main concern. Like, what was hell? What would it be like? And I was very concerned with that anybody that wasn't a Christian was going to go to hell. So I was always like looking at people, whether or not they were Christians, what they were. And it was always populating in my mind, they're not going to heaven. They're not going to heaven. They're not going to heaven. So this was a very kind of neurotic way to be. But that's the way I function. And anytime I heard a news story, saw anything, if it was out of alignment with Christianity, I was like, oh, wow, they're going to hell. And, you know, that in itself, because of judging them, kept me in judgment of myself. Meaning that every time, even though I knew the gospel, every time I did anything that was out of alignment with what I thought was God, I would truthfully, internally judge my own self and say, I'm possibly going to hell for this. Even though I knew the gospel and knew that I had been saved, every time I did something, I went through this judgment. And every time I saw in the outside world somebody doing this, I went through judging them. It wasn't until I stopped judging myself in that non-dual awakening that I stopped judging anyone else. So something to pay attention to, a big insight to look at. Okay. So with religion, a lot of people think that religion provides some safety. A lot of people believe that religion provides them a sense of community, something that they would need to survive here on earth. And so they join these things, and they are fairly healthy and good for family units and for people. I'm part of a church. My husband's part of a church. We are all, we have been, and we find it beneficial for the most part. But that's the thing, is everything is pretty much beneficial for the most part, but you have to discern that. You have to see how your relationship is with it. When I had the relationship of fear towards church, when I had the relationship of judgment, whether they were judging me or I was judging them, then my relationship with the church was not a good relationship. My relationship with the church now is better than it was the whole time I was supposedly a Christian. So my relationship with the church is amazing now. So that just goes to show, examine your relationship with things. How is that? Do you find it pleasurable? Do you find it fun? Do you find it uplifting? Do you get edified? Do you feel, does the church bring something to you? Or do you feel judged, small, little? What is it that you're feeling? Scared? And so if it is that, check your relationship with that. It's not that the church is bad. It's not that this thing is bad or that person's bad. Somehow your relationship is off with it. And if it is just not in alignment with your character, you walk away from stuff like that. No one's keeping you in any of these things. No one's even keeping you watching videos like this or anything. At any point, you have the power to walk away. You have the power to say no. You have that power. Anything in our life, I know this is going to be triggering, but anything in our life that's happening, we've allowed it. Whether that's consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously or consciously, whatever you want to say, we've allowed it. It's the truth. When you start seeing things clearly, you start seeing things clearly. And sometimes that's painful, but you learn. And so the thing about spirituality, it allows you to see things clearly. The more that you follow your own heart, your own discernment, your own path with God, your own relationship with God, rather than those that other people have said it is this way, you clearly follow your own path, the more that will be unfolded for you, the more that you will see clearly, the more clarity you will get through that. Whereas if you follow, let's say these set of rules, this textbook, this organization, you're only going to get that far. And that's the same thing with fear. If we are fearful, fear is keeping you basically in a certain realm, in a certain space. And if you're fearful, if you're going to continue on with your fears, you're only ever going to experience that. You're never going to experience the other side of fear. You're never going to know what that is. And I'm going to tell you, there is so much more. I mean, so much more. So much. That it can't even be verbalized what's there. But, cleverly, everything is hidden behind fear. We see these themes in movies. We see these themes in books, in music, in our lives, everywhere. Okay? I love The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz, if you have not seen it, it has everything that you need to know in that movie. If you really can tune into what the message is, it has everything you ever need to know there. Almost so many movies are like that. If you haven't gotten into movies, start watching some movies, because most movies are pointing to everything I'm talking about. Because you see, movies, books, poetry, music, everything comes from the heart. It's creativity. The only way you have creativity is you have to open your heart. And when you open your heart, there's safety, there's openness there. Creativity joins, and then we blossom and we do things. And when you're in the heart has no polarity. The heart is very genuine, very authentic. It tells the truth. It doesn't lie. It doesn't manipulate. So for the most part, works of art are channeled, meaning that they're coming through source, meaning that there are a clear pointing to what I'm talking about. So watch some of these movies. Now, talking about The Wizard of Oz. In The Wizard of Oz, Everybody wanted to see the great and powerful Oz. That was the main thing. And it was almost even like an intimidating thing. Do you remember Dorothy? Like, it was a big thing to see the great and powerful Oz. And no one had seen him, and he was behind this curtain and all of these things, right? That's just a symbol. That's a symbol for you. That is how religion keeps God hidden away from you. Like it's something that you can't access. Like it's there, like, oh yeah, you can go hang out with it. You can be around it. You can kind of sing, dance, worship it, be near it, pray to it, talk to it. But you can't necessarily ever access it fully. That's how they want to keep it. Well, I'm telling you that's not true. You have a personal relationship with God. God is right there with you right now where you're sitting watching this video. God is right here in this video. God is right here talking. God is right there in you, breathing, doing everything that you are doing. You are not separate from God. You never have been. If anybody has told you that you're separate from God, that you have to earn your worthiness to be in the kingdom of God, if you have to earn your worthiness to be in the presence of God, if you have to earn your worthiness or do works or prove yourself in some way through financial giving, offerings, or whatever it happens to be with God, that is a false God. They are lying to you. And that is one of the highest things that someone can do to you to hurt you as a person here. To take away that divinity, to hide that from you. That's one of the worst things someone can do to you here. That's why I won't do it. I'm going to point you back to you every time. There is nothing threatening to me about you knowing your divinity. But for many people in this world that don't understand their true divinity in a whole and complete way, they think they have something. They're still working with that superior ego, thinking that they have something. And yes, they've accessed something, but they're not seeing the whole picture. They're not seeing the oneness. They're not seeing that you are me and I am you. And they're not seeing there's a whole energy, and we are just energy, occurring here. There is a lot more to this story that we don't have the time to go into here. But anyhow, because of this, we have kind of been blinded. We've kind of been manipulated, shunned, not shunned, but basically taught and had these sorts of teachings and things that have hidden certain truths, the highest truths. And yes, not everybody can have the highest truths right away because it could be very destabilizing to someone. But they have clearly ejected and taken out, misinterpreted, mistaught, things that are so clear. Y'all, pull out your Bibles, pull out whatever religious texts y'all have. Yes, a lot of them have been changed, distorted, many things, but there is so much wisdom there now as it is. Like I say, watch a movie, read a poem. In this, you will experience Source. You will experience God. You will experience God speaking to you in your truth. You don't have to go to Oz. You don't have to go find the powerful Wizard of Oz and go through all these loops and hoops and work and do and suffer and do all of these things to get there. That, what you think is there, you see it's right behind your eyes. You can't see it. That's where it's at. It's right in your heart. You've been looking for this everywhere else other than right here where you're at now in this moment. And isn't it funny that everybody's been telling you to stay in the moment, to be in the moment? Why? Because everything is in this moment. When you leave this moment, you leave heaven. And you leave your divinity. And you give your power to other people, other organizations, other sources, thinking that they have something that you don't. That's a false god. No one outside of you has anything that you don't have. But the fear that you have is so misplaced in thinking that you have to do these works, you have to follow these rules, or you will be banished to a place called hell. You've been living in hell this whole time. You didn't see that? You've been in hell this whole time. Hell and heaven is in your mind. And so I've made a video about this a while back. These things we hear about, these words, heaven, hell, you know, and the descriptions of it are symbols to something that's occurring right here and now in this moment. You can always choose hell. You can always choose heaven right here in this moment. You don't have to die. You don't have to do anything other than either believe fear, which is illusion, or believe love, which is truth. That is what it is. But so many people want to believe fear. And so, you know, and even people that believe fear, I don't believe that they believe fear all the way. I think that they're afraid of their divinity. Because have you ever heard people, or, you know, I don't have any friends that do this. Have you ever heard anybody when you're out there in the world that, you know, does something like, okay, maybe they left the store and they didn't scan an item or something, and they decide not to go back and pay for it. You don't hear them saying like, oh my gosh, I should definitely go back. If I don't go back, then I'd be stealing and I'd go to hell and I'd be against, you know, the 10 Commandments. I'd be against this or that. You don't ever hear people saying these things. Or when someone lies, or when someone's rude to someone, or when someone gossips. You know, these are high offenses in the Bible, you know. And so when people do this out in the world, you never hear them truly actually being fearful of reality, in the reality of that they're actually going to hell. They don't actually believe that. Have you noticed that? Because they're never truly like laying on the ground crying like, oh my God, like I just did this thing, I'm going to go to hell. Like they're not doing that. So they don't truly believe that. I even noticed this the other day, and I'm not trying to bring other issues in or anything, but even people that speak on, like activists and people that speak on certain issues. Now, not everybody's like this, but there was a couple people actually that were talking about climate change and stuff like that. And I had heard a rumor, someone saying, oh, you know, this guy has a huge house here, huge house there. He's actually not interested in climate change. And you know, I heard these little judgmental comments, whatever. But out of curiosity, I wanted to know, is this man have all of these houses, all of these things? Sure enough, he did. So the thing is, if he truly believed this, the way that he preaches it, he would not own these things, and they would not be in that way. You know, at least they would be eco-friendly or whatever. Your beliefs, you know, there's a lot of truth to what they say about your actions. Your actions do speak louder than words a lot of times, because they're showing what you truly believe, what you're putting into action. See, it all starts from within, and then it gets projected out. If your projection of what you're doing, where you live, how you do, is not in alignment with what you're saying that's coming from within, then we can see it's not genuine. It's not authentic. And so many of these people that are so fearful of spirituality are not really even fearful of their own God or anything. They're just in comfort. They are comfortable in their position where they're at. It benefits them. It's where they're good. And for whatever reason, in that role, that's where they feel comfortable. So there's no reason to try to convert these people. There's no reason to try to do anything. So as you can see, the fear of spirituality, even if you are more on the spiritual end, is not like religion. See, religion wants to throw it down your throat, wants to convert you, get you, put you here, put you to work, not let you go, basically keep you in this wheel, and not letting you think too far ahead of anything. Like even if you found a Bible verse and you want to expand on it, or you know, you think you have this idea that it could be this way, they will shut you down. Okay, they will. I've tried this many times. So they will shut you down. So you are with yourself in certain areas. So this is a very limiting structure that's been set up, but many people feel comfortable in that because it does provide a certain level of safety. Spirituality is wild. We do not know whether what's being sold on the spiritual marketplace, what that is. So I would recommend, when I'm talking about spirituality, it's your own relationship with God. And if in your own relationship with God, it leads you to things like angels, then so be it. Then there it is. Now your experience is that. You have had that experience. If your experience in spirituality leads you to hug a tree, like it did for me, then that's what happened. But allow yourself that openness, whereas in the religion, they won't really hardly let you try these things or talk about them. If you go hug a tree, do that, come back and tell them the powers of that. Now, they're still going to not put value on that at all, even though it could possibly help many people. So with spirituality, you're discerning through your own sacred heart. So that's what I would suggest that is. Spirituality is not, okay, let's go buy every single crystal out there. Let's go get an astrology. Let's go ahead and start wearing all white linen. And let's just start doing all of these things and travel to India and meet some yogis and all of these things. No, it's not. You know, it could lead you that way because there's many truths and many heart space sort of openings and things like that already there. But the path can look very different for many people. So just discern with your own heart. And so the scary part about it is that, you know, many people see the side of spirituality and see all of these things like, oh, tarot cards or this or that, and they judge it. And so it keeps people away from exploring these things, even if they are naturally occurring in your heart to explore. So I would just explore these things for your own self. There's no reason to have to tell people every little thing you're doing. Your spiritual journey is a very personal journey, and it really should be, because as soon as you start sharing these things, you notice everybody's got an opinion. And these opinions can really lead you to really adopt their opinions once again. So it's going to lead you into another ego trap, and possibly into another religion that seems a little better, and this and that. So you're going to be kind of adjusting and calibrating to different things here and there, while still denying your own divinity in that process. Why not just walk into it, accept it as you feel it fully, even if you have to do that privately for yourself? This is an individual. This isn't, you're alone here essentially anyhow. So if you have to do this alone, it's not that you are a martyr, that you're going through suffering having to do this alone. It's actually a great thing to do this alone. As you do this alone, you will experience the greatest journey of your life. And in this journey, you will see parts of reality that will just mesmerize you. You will experience God to its fullest. It's something that you will never see if you don't try to go past fear. I'm so emotional because of the vast magnitude of what God is. It's not even seen here. Unless you have eyes to see this, you will not. And even if you can get a glimpse of this, I wish that for you. And I know that you will eventually. We all will. We all will see this. And we will all come into union together. And so I just want to kind of bring you some hope as well. Because, you know, while I talk about that the majority of people just don't see this, the majority of people go through life very grumpy and not enjoying their experience, even though it's actually beautiful, but they're just seeing it with different eyes. It will all turn around at some point, and you will see this for yourself, because you are this, you did this, you're just doing the other side of this, like that suffering side where you're not seeing this, so that you can see this even fuller. I went through that. You know, I went into suffering so bad. I believed I was separate so bad that now I get to experience it this way. And not everybody has to go through that path. You can just go ahead and experience this for yourself now. You can go ahead, and maybe it won't happen all in a bang like this, but you can start taking steps to align with your own sacred heart. And your own sacred heart is where everything lies, where your true self is. See, you're doing a big disservice to this world if you're not being your true self. Because the biggest and greatest thing you could ever give us here on humanity, on this earth, is to just simply be yourself. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to start a business. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to even buy a house. You don't have to do anything anyone's ever told you. All you simply have to do here is be yourself. And in being yourself, you have no idea how that transforms and heals and just releases things in this earth. It's a beautiful thing. So if you can just be yourself, that's everything. So being you is the greatest gift you can give this world. And I hope that you will begin to do that. Thank you so much for watching. Share this video with others if you found it useful. And subscribe to my channel if you are new here and you like this content. Thank you so much for watching.